Then, yeah.
Every school is doing a veteran.
A veteran
Every
project?
school, yeah.
Wow.
I have 6 or 8 schools that I'm doing. G-Star is one. They did a veterans thing. And they put a board together, the size of this mirror, pictures of me, and they're going to hang it on the wall someplace. I don't know where.
Ready? Okay. So, you press record already? Okay. So today is March 9th, 2014. This is the beginning of an interview with Carl Arfa at his home, 10280 Spyglass Way in Boca Raton, Florida. Mr. Arfa is 89 years old, having been born on September 5th, 1924. My name is Ronald Cornely, and I will be the interviewer. I also have my associate Dana Loheed here to assist. I am a Suncoast High School student who wishes to document Mr. Arfa's story. Mr. Arfa, could you state what branch of the Army you served in?
Infantry.
Okay. What was your rank?
I was a sergeant, but it came out of PFC.
And where did you serve?
I served in Belgium, France, Belgium, and Germany.
Okay, so we're going to start on December 7th, 1941, the Pearl Harbor attack. Where were you?
Okay, and December the 7th, I was in the movies with my girlfriend. And while the movie was going on, they stopped it. And Mr. Kutcher, the owner of the movie, came out on the stage and said, Pearl Harbor is being bombed at this moment. Go home. The movie is over. And we went home. I took my girlfriend home. Her name was Doris Sherman. I married her 5 or 7 years later. I had 2 children with her. And I went home. My dad, my mother, and my sister were listening to a radio, a Philco. I remember it was like about that size. And I could hear the bombs falling on Pearl Harbor. I could hear them. And even though there was a lot of static and other things, I could hear the bombs falling on Pearl Harbor. My dad was very upset. I was the son of an immigrant. And being the son of an immigrant who loved this country because he came from Russia, at a time when Lenin took over, it became a communist country. My dad was a sailor on board a ship coming to America for supplies for World War I. It was 1917, summer of 1917. When they landed in New York, they couldn't dock. So during the night, my dad saw the cars driving in Brooklyn. So he climbed down off the ship, swam in the Hudson River to Brooklyn, walked from Brooklyn to the Bronx, and got to the Bronx sometime in the afternoon. Very courageous man. Didn't speak one word of English and didn't have a penny to his name. But he spoke a language called Yiddish, which is a language of Jewish people from Poland, from the Eastern Europe. It really is a bastardized German. And he went into a candy store and he asked for a glass of water by pointing to the sink. And the lady said to him in Yiddish, are you a greenhorn? He didn't know what that meant. But that was a common language, common expression for people from Europe. She said to him in Yiddish, here's the water, and are you looking for a job? And he said, yes. He took a job across the street from that candy store in a Hebrew orphan home where he was a dishwasher for $30 a month. And he slept in the attic. At the end of 3 months, he had accumulated $90, and he had accumulated a big box of food that he had saved from his meals. And in the middle of the night, he left and he walked 100 miles, sleeping in the woods, because he was afraid of the police. He was illegal. He came to a town called Monticello, New York, where he met my mother. A year or two later, he He married her a year or two after that, and I was born a year or two after that in 1924. My dad became a very big success. He worked very, very hard. He was a house painter. Worked very hard, and he was able to become a boss painter. He had 120 employees, and he painted all the hotels in that area. And I was his partner for 30-some years until he passed away. I left college because I realized that going to college was a waste of my time and the professor's time. And I had a Professor Rothstein that said to me, "Young man, I want to see you after class." So I said, "Okay, sir." I was out of the Army already. And the Army was paying for my college education. He said, "Do yourself a favor and do me a favor and don't come back tomorrow." He says, "You need to go to work because you've been away 4 years. It's too long from your high school to your college. You don't remember nothing. And you lived a very dramatic life in the Army, so you need to do something else." I went to my dad, and my dad said to me, "Go to work." I worked for him for 3 years, and then I became his partner, and we became very successful. Being the son of and then came Pearl Harbor, and 2 weeks later in the New York Times, there was I remember I came home from school, and my dad said to me, "Mr. Big Shot," that's what he used to call me, "come and read this newspaper article in the New York Times." And the article was, "All illegal immigrants must report to the INS." My father said to me, "What should I do?" By this time, he was wearing a cowboy hat and cowboy boots and drove a big Cadillac and was very successful. He was head of the Republican Party, never voted one day in his life, but nobody ever asked him. And he was a big contributor to the Republican Party, and I still am. I said to him, "Dad, what are you talking about?" And that's when I heard the story that I just told you. I didn't know it till I was 17 years old. It was a secret. But my mother went to the mayor of the town, Mayor De Hoyos, who went to Senator Irving M. Ives, was the New York State Senator. And they passed a bill, the Meyer-Arfa's bill, legal immigrant bill, and he became a citizen of the United States that day. My mother went before Judge Cook in Monticello, New York, who said to her, and I was there, I was 17 years old, "Mrs. Arfa, the Lincoln Monument is in memory of who?" And she said, "Judge Cook, I think, Mr. Lincoln." "Passed. You're now a citizen." That's exactly how it happened. Exactly. There was a big celebration in the town, and you got to remember, the town only had 3,000 people, and everybody was friends. Everybody. We never heard the word racism in my town. Never. My best friend was Jesse Jenkins, was from an African-American family. My other best friend was Henry Yamanaka, who was Japanese. And we lived in a town that there was nobody hated anybody. I was raised that way. So it was a wonderful town to live in. And my dad was proud of me. And when Pearl Harbor came, that afternoon I said, "Dad, I'm 17. I could join the Marines or the Navy." Because at 17 you could. He said to me, "Okay." We sat down to have dinner, which we did every night. It was Sunday night. My mother always made dinner. My sister, my father, my mother, and me. I said, "Pop, will you drive me to the check-in station?" He said, "Yep." He says, "When you finish high school." So that was the end of my joining up, and I was a junior in those days. And eventually I became a senior. Graduation day finally came, and we graduated on the courthouse steps because our school was too small for graduation. And on Bank Street, on the corner of the courthouse steps, were two buses. And we threw our caps in the air, and the mayor was making a speech, our congressman was making a speech, the sheriff was making a speech, and my mother was making a river. She was crying. My dad was proud, his buttons were popping off his shirt. And we threw our caps in the air, got on the buses, and came home 3 years later. Some of my friends didn't come home, and two of my friends came home missing parts of their body. And I came home as a wounded war veteran, and I get a pension now from the government. And there's an interesting part to this. My foot hurts me 29 days a month. On the first of the month, the pain stops. I don't understand that, but it's because I think the check arrives on the first of the month. So the pain goes away. On the second of the month, the pain is back.
Okay, so you went through basic training, then you headed over.
I went to basic training in a place called Anniston, Alabama. I'd never been to the Deep South in my life.